I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, July the 17th, 2014. A temporary ceasefire that had been requested by the United Nations in order to allow for relief aid for Gaza residents was broken by Hamas today. About 2 hours after the 5-hour halt went into effect, Hamas fired 3 rockets from Gaza into the Eshkol Regional Council. And more rockets were fired from Gaza at the moment the humanitarian truce officially ended at 3 p.m. local time in Israel, with over 40 rockets fired at Tel Aviv, Beersheba, Ashkelon, and Sha'ar HaNegev. Earlier this morning, before the UN temporary halt and fire began, the IDF successfully thwarted an attempt by Hamas to infiltrate Israel in what is thought to have been an attempt at a large-scale terror attack or attempt to kidnap Israeli soldiers or civilians. Approximately 13 armed Hamas terrorists emerged from an underground tunnel on the Israeli side of the border near Kibbutz Sufa in the early morning hours today. IDF lookouts had already identified the group and they were targeted by the Israeli Air Force. The Times of Israel reports at least 8 were killed by the targeted strike. Later today, the IDF closed several roads in southern Israel due to an unspecified security event. Those roads have since been reopened and the security alert lifted. And the BBC had reported earlier today that a new ceasefire agreement was in the works between Israel and Hamas that would begin tomorrow, Friday. But Israel's Channel 10 later quoted an Israeli official saying those reports were incorrect. The IDF said they were conducting an investigation into the airstrike yesterday on a Gaza beach in which 4 Palestinian children were killed. The IDF called the deaths tragic and said initial findings showed the airstrike was targeting terrorists in the area and that it was being used as a launching point for terror activity. The IDF said it is a tragic event if innocent civilians were hurt in the incident. It is important to remember the cynical use of Gaza Strip residents by Hamas, who hold them as hostages, which the IDF said has brought about the cancellation of attacks on terror targets, as has been proven in the past few days. They said the IDF has no intention to harm civilians hurled into the reality of war because of Hamas. Israel indicted the 3 suspects in the abduction and murder of 16-year-old Palestinian Muhammad Abu Qadir today. The 3 suspects whose names have not been revealed, as that remains under a gag order, are a 29-year-old man from the West Bank settlement of Adam and 2 teens, one from Jerusalem and one from Beit Shemesh. The 3 Israelis reportedly killed Abu Qadir to avenge the murder of the 3 Israeli teens Eyal Yifrach, Naftali Frankel, and Gilad Shar. Israel's Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein praised Israeli law enforcement for their work in apprehending the suspects quickly after the murder of the Palestinian teen, which Weinstein called a horrifying act that goes against all basic human morals. The Jerusalem Post reports that following the indictment, Israel's Defense Ministry recognized Abu Qadir as a victim of hostile action, meaning that his family will get benefits from the State of Israel and he should be on the list of names on Israel's Memorial Day for victims of terror attacks. Meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama said the U.S. was hoping for a diplomatic solution between Israel and Hamas. The president referred to the short-lived Egyptian proposed ceasefire earlier this week that Israel had accepted. He said, unfortunately, Hamas continued to fire rockets at civilians, thereby prolonging the conflict. Obama said at the White House yesterday, as I've said repeatedly, Israel has a right to defend itself from rocket attacks that terrorize the Israeli people, saying there is no country on earth that can be expected to live under a daily barrage of rockets. The president said the U.S. would keep encouraging diplomatic efforts in order to restore peace and calm in the region. A new poll from the Pew Research Center shows the American public's support for Israel during the current crisis with Hamas. The poll revealed on Tuesday was conducted from July the 8th through the 14th at the start of the crisis. It shows that 51% of Americans say that in the dispute between Israel and the Palestinians, they sympathize more with Israel, with 14% saying they sympathize more with the Palestinians, 15% saying they sympathize with neither side, and 3% saying they sympathize with both. According to Pew, these numbers have not changed much since April, before the recent crisis began. However, Pew does note that the poll shows a widening partisan gap in regards to Israel, saying that Republicans who sympathize more with Israel have risen from 68% to 73%, while 44% of Democrats express more sympathy for Israel than the Palestinians. Independents, siding more with Israel, dropped from 51% in April to 45%. The survey also found significant age differences in opinions. 60% of those surveyed aged 65 and up were more sympathetic towards Israel, as were 56% of those between the ages of 50 and 64. But the numbers dropped with respondents under the age of 50. Among those surveyed between the ages of 30 and 49 and under 30, 47 and 44% respectively were more sympathetic towards Israel than the Palestinians. And turning now to our Shalom TV programming for tonight, Thursday, July the 17th. Coming up after the news, the new Shalom TV show Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. That's tonight on Shalom TV and shalomtv.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, July the 17th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.